So, Anette, hello. You have a legal approach, so you will reinforce and strengthen our skills. Talking about the topics, so what is responsibility of municipalities? And also, we know that there are some things which we have included on the paper, which is in documents, but not in reality. So, can we start talking about these regulations in order to get what should be done? And this is the 21st century. There are certain things municipalities have to ensure. If they have somebody who starts living in an apartment or flat, and they need to assistance in this accessibility. So what does the regulations say?
Thank you very much about this opportunity to speak before you. I have prepared a presentation and I will share it myself. So I hope you can see and hear me well and see my presentation. So when the Ministry of Welfare offered the Ombudsman office to take part in this conference, they suggested the topic accessibility of the environment as a good principle of good guidance or good governance in municipalities. When reading this topic, it was clear that the ministry understands that there are problems with accessibility issues in practice and is looking for additional argumentation in order for responsible institutions to understand that this accessibility should be ensured. We decided not only to talk about good governance, but also to have a general, a wider approach as to what should be respected by municipalities. So I would like to talk about respect for general principles of law in municipalities and how to use them to speak about or to address the issues of accessibility. So first, the first part will be very legal. Then there will be examples. The principle is the main law, but general means something that is meant for everyone. So general principles should be observed by anyone, irrespective of legal status, be it subjects of public or private law. Those can be either written or oral principles, and we call them general principles of law. And there are no difference whether the general principle is written or not. Between all general principles of law, there are no hierarchy relations, which one prevails. There are cases of collision, and when collision is there, we evaluate and assess. At the beginning of 90s, Latvia broke free from Soviet Union, and we joined continental law. In Soviet system, everything went by the law. Where is it written? If it wasn't written, then you shouldn't obey that rule. But in continental law, there are general principles, also oral or unwritten. But in order to avoid this problem of not being written down, many general laws, as well as case law, where we can observe those principles, are actually written down. The first one is the Administrative Procedure Law, and Article 4 foresees the obligations of municipalities. which is prescribed by this law, as well as other general principles derived from other pieces of legislation or case law. If we talk about articles, there are altogether 11 articles: principle of equality, principle of observation of rights of a private person, also the principle of just proportionality, democratic society principle, as well as others. Altogether 11 principles that should be observed by municipalities, also including accessibility issues. In addition, as this law foresees, other general principles should be observed in other legislative acts, namely principle of good governance. Also, the Cabinet webpage foresees that the center or the subject of good governance is a human being. This is a good principle to remember. Also, we have some indications from our case law, namely principle of human dignity. So altogether, there are at least 13 principles that are binding for municipalities. If we talk about what is a principle, what's the essence of a general principles, here in this slide you can see a summary of each of those 13 principles. I believe that this presentation is going to be available for you in the future as well, so I'm not going to read them out. But if we put them all together, every institution should create this reality, namely the discrimination, including discrimination for disability, is not acceptable. Also, the decisions should be taking into account the essence, not theoretically. If something is not observed, for example, there is not a ramp being constructed, that means that that municipality or that management of that building has evaluated its necessity for the benefit of the society, for the democratic values of the society, etc., etc. Also, human rights and human dignity should be observed, and every person is equal. Stereotypes cannot be applied, and they cannot be applied in order to diminish possibilities for one person. For example, you spoke about taking the side door or taking service entrance. If you have a wheelchair, that is not appropriate, that is not accessible. Also, if there is a person with mental disabilities, to forbid him or her to enter an event because that is a breach of human dignity and human rights. At the moment, the person with disabilities is protected by 4 pillars: UN pillar, or general principle, also European Union, also Council of Europe with social charter, as well as member states themselves, including construction law, as well as law on education, and other laws also contain accessibility issues for people with disabilities. If we speak about UN Convention, we use 3 terms: universal design, wise application as well as accessibility. They have some differences. Accessibility is a precondition for people with disability to live independently and to be integrated in the society. If you read the UN Convention, all the rights begin with accessibility. We cannot implement any of those rights if accessibility is not ensured. Wise application eliminates unproportionate burden for one of the parties, and universal design means solutions should be adapted for everyone. What does it concern? For example, universal design concerns all the society, seniors, children, all the ethnic groups, women, men. Accessibility should be applied before an individual claim. Adaptation should be done after the claim is received. How it should be implemented? It should be implemented gradually, ensuring this accessibility gradually. It shouldn't be asked to do it immediately, thus avoiding unnecessary burden or a disproportionate burden, but you cannot hide behind this disproportionate burden on all the occasions. Discrimination, yes or no? Again, in terms of accessibility, those are the objects or legal acts that forbid the accessibility. If the convention itself is not defining accessibility principle, but it foresees that the burden or application or where it should be ensured is in physical environment, also concerning information and communication to all the objects. And there is no stress on, for example, on a manager of a building, but whether these buildings ensure public services. For example, if this is a university ensuring public service, ensuring higher education, but it is in a building that they lease, so they cannot hide, the university cannot hide behind this lease agreement, namely that they do not own the building and they are not the ones who should implement the accessibility measures. If they are ensuring this service, they are the ones who take care of the accessibility. Also, this accessibility concerns both city environment and rural environment. Also, the state has to create a system of legal regulation on accessibility with technical parameters, namely the angle, the width of a ramp or a door, etc. Then there should be a plan how existing infrastructure is adapted. In other words, if the convention has entered into force in 2010, then it cannot be a situation that exactly on the 1st of January 2010 we are adopting or building new houses that fit all the parameters. There should be gradual maintenance or gradual works being done in the existing buildings. Also, there should be a control mechanism. There should be a cooperation with organizations, also organizations for people with disabilities, and the control mechanism foreseen also for sanctions, as well as all the parties should be educated or trained on accessibility issues. What is the aim of accessibility? We can talk about UN human rights model. We can quote all the people who have spoken about accessibility. I want to stress that accessibility means both physical as well as technical, as well as communication issues. But what we want to give individuality. We want this person, everyone, to have accessibility and to be able to access everything by themselves, to enter a building, to open a web page. If it's possible, then it is accessible. If not, it not. So how does this work in Latvia, that the human being is in the center of everything? In the left, you can see our passenger train. No comments, because not even every person without disabilities can step onto the train. In the middle, you can see that yes, there is a kind of a ramp or a slide, but it ends not reaching the ground. Then we have a ramp, but it is too narrow for a person in a wheelchair to get up, or even for a mother with a stroll, as well as maybe it was meant for a person in a bicycle, but most probably not, because you are not entering a shop with a bicycle. So here the person is in the center of everything, the University of Latvia in the center, the main building. It is clear that from the main entrance you cannot enter with a wheelchair, but it is possible to use another door by previous notice, by previous mention, and probably a call, but the door should be unlocked especially, and then the elevator is being provided, but not to all the floors. Also, lavatory for people with disabilities was closed when we did the checks the last time. In the other picture to the right, you can see a pharmacy. They have tried to talk about accessibility issues. The right angle is used for the ramp. There are markings on the floor. But this door has to be opened or kept open at all times, but it's not possible in our weather conditions. So someone else has to open that door for that person, and this person cannot do it individually. This is again a picture of one of the central streets of Riga. We tried to, or actually the municipality tried to make up guidelines for people with vision impairments, and here we can see that in one picture it is to the right. This pavement is especially made on the right. On the other side, it is on the left, as well as this additional pavement, this special pavement is used also for decorating the flower beds, thus being confusing. Again, here it is clearly seen that it is possible to turn to the right. Liepāja also places those informative blocks of showing how many lanes are there on the street, as well as in some places they are placing this display of Braille map. What's the difference between Riga and Liepāja? Very simple. Liepāja is questioning constantly people with vision impairments to take decisions on best solutions. Riga is doing it without those people. So what are the conclusions? There are 10 general principles that apply to all the municipalities for everyone. So we urge to apply all of those 10 principles, and they have a higher legal force than other general laws. And thus, I hope all the municipalities will do what has been prescribed by these general laws. Also, there is a direct obligation
kas ir veidot pēc šiem piekļūstamības nosacījumu spēkā stāšanās, tad papildus ir iespējams konstatēt diskriminācijas aizliegumu pārkāpumu principu.
The next issue is whether we can honestly say that we have done everything as it should be, and whether we have trained our staff on accessibility. Because by seeing those examples, and I believe that respective NGOs do have even more examples of those bizarre situations, and I believe that yes, our people have not been trained to the maximum. Have we created an evaluation system for accessibility from substance, not just formally? Who is evaluating accessibility, for example, of schools? It is being evaluated, but not only the fact that the child can enter the school, but maybe we should evaluate also the training material to be evaluated, if they are accessible for every child. Are we evaluating, for example, medical institutions? Yes, one can enter the door, but is a person able, from the wheelchair, with the wheelchair, is he or she being able to get into a dentist chair individually by themselves? Also, accessibility as a term is more applied to people in wheelchairs, with people with physical disabilities. But accessibility applies to all the persons with all kinds of disabilities. If there are glass walls being created, do the appropriate marking so that the person with vision impairments do not bump into that wall. Accessibility applies also not to physical but informative environment, and also to digital environment, when especially during these times of pandemics, when everything has been swapped from physical environment to digital environment. So we have to ask a question whether, for example, Latvia LV is accessible to everyone, whether State Revenue Service webpage is accessible by everyone. So we have to evaluate all of that. That is all from me. Thank you very much. Because I thought that those who are always fighters for everything, I think, Anete, you inspired them. And you inspired also those who might stop at first difficulties. You also mentioned that NGOs should always be involved. But what if in a respective municipality there are no NGOs of one or another kind? So can a person take matters in his or her hands to try and appeal to that municipality that something has to be done in that respective municipality? Of course, every individual can do by themselves, and if he or she is not listened to, they can always call us, Ombuds office. We have had cases when a person alone has been knocking on the doors of a municipality, and these people asked for being able to get out of the building, in the building, to cross the street, etc., etc. And they have managed to achieve what they wanted. But also, if you can't do it, and you can't do it alone, or you don't have an NGO in your respective city, you can always turn to us. You can send a report to us, and we always attract an NGO, including an payroll organization. They are trying and they are always evaluating the reports and coming up with their opinion. And those are specialists similar to Jurgis. Jurgis is the next person who is going to talk, and because he is an expert of environmental accessibility. Thank you very much, Anete.